I've been going over this, like how should I talk about it. The other day in the Spanish version of this, which by the way, if you do know Spanish, I urge you to look at it, because it's
Yes,
really good,
please.
and I'm even sexier in Spanish. I kind of went through an introduction, asking you and Fabio about what the RPG genre is.
Mm.
It kind of went well, by the way. I think I was happy with the result. But well, today Fabio's not here, who is much more experienced when it comes to RPGs, and I also kind of know the answer that you're going to give me. So I still I'm going to ask you based on the on what we have known since then about RPGs, what your idea of an RPG is, but I also want to know what you like or don't like, or both of them, about RPGs. So, what is an RPG for you, and what you like and don't like about RPGs?
For me, an RPG is well, we were discussing this. It's like
Hmm.
we can I can affirm that it's a genre, right?
Hmm.
A
Hmm.
genre that is really it's a really important genre because I believe that RPG is like when we're talking about gaining experience points. For
Hmm.
example, in Dying Light, I mentioned that in Dying Light points in Dying Light you gained combat and parkour experience points.
Hmm.
And in the more points you get, then you can get one ability, two, three, four, and then you
Hmm.
can like complete a skill tree. I understand that the games that are more RPG that they belong more to the genre are the
Hmm.
ones that the skill tree is more varied, more it's bigger, right?
Hmm.
And that way, I believe that RPG their main purpose is to try to create your own experience. Exactly, like they want you to enjoy. They want you to enjoy the game, but the way you want it. So if you, for example, I understand that the most common thing in RPG is like the fantasy, medieval. So I understand that, for example, in the common skill tree would be with the ability of magic, combat, charisma. For example, charisma, I would say that is a factor that is many times included in RPG games. The
Hmm.
charisma
Yeah.
factor. For example, in Fallout and Skyrim, I believe it's in it. And for example, so that no charisma, combat, movement, luck. That is something that in RPG it's
I
like a
like.
kind of
Yeah.
interesting, like the
Hmm.
probability to find items or to have good results. That's an important stuff. So yes, and what was the second question?
What you,
What I like.
I mean, yeah, since you are not a person that plays a lot of RPGs, I'm guessing there is a reason, right? Why you don't like them, or what do you think even are some good points, but still in the end you don't quite like?
I believe I don't have a problem with the genre itself. I mean, I don't
Hmm.
have the problem with the with the statistics and the and experience points, and it's not
Hmm.
anything about this. I must recognize that I get anxious, that I get nervous when I have so many options because it's like, oh man, how do I start? Charisma, combat. I mean, do I want to kick harder? Do I want to move faster? What do I want?
What do I want?
And
Okay, okay,
the thing
that's
is, I
interesting.
also go to the option of in the skill tree to there is always the skill tree to gain more points. I always go to that because I believe that it's the option if you want
Okay.
to go faster to
Hmm.
like gain more points when you kill
Okay.
enemies. No, it's like
Yeah.
that.
So kind of the resource is kind of tree, right?
Yes, yes,
Hmm. Hmm.
and also that when you know this the luck stuff, no, like the
Hmm.
probability to find useful items during your quest and that kind of things.
Uh-huh.
But
Uh-huh.
what I don't like the, so that's what I like is that it gives players their own adventures. And I
Hmm.
love that. When you personalize, when you custom the experience, I love this because I love it. I think it's a really good point. What I don't like is that predominantly or mainly RPG games are related to fantasy, with medieval, with like magic and this kind of stuff that I don't say that I don't like, but like magic is not something realistic. I mean, I know that in terms of video games, talking about realism is not appropriate, but I don't know. It's like since the laws of magic are subject to the creator, I don't really know what are these laws. So it's like I don't really know what I can do in this kind of games because magic is like it can be
Yeah,
anything.
too broad of a concept.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So and also because these kind of setting are not the ones that I
Hmm.
prefer.
Hmm.
For example, then this is like a really good example of how I am. I started, I mean, talking about video games of Bethesda Softworks. I
Hmm.
played Fallout 4, and I believe it has important RPG elements in there.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
an RPG shooter. Yeah.
so, okay. So yeah, but the thing is that the fourth one I think is the less RPG,
Least
the
RPG.
least. Yes, I believe the previous one where it had more RPG elements. Um, when I played Fallout 4, I almost spent the whole year playing the game because also it's a huge game, and I loved it. But when I changed from Fallout 4 to Skyrim, that I think that Skyrim got released before Fallout 4, and when I played Skyrim, I realized that both games are at least in interface and how it works
Yeah.
kind of similar. Um, I didn't get hooked into Skyrim precisely due to the setting. So I would
Mhm.
say that that's my main problem with the
Okay.
genre.
Okay. So your problem with the genre. Let's make an abstract. So it will be first that you don't like it that they give you so many options. Like
No, no,
it
no.
kind of.
It's not that I don't like. I understand that it's important there, but I get. I don't know how to say. It's like I don't know what
Yeah, you
option to
get
choose.
anxious, right? You
Yes.
know exactly what to do, where to go, etc.
Yes.
Okay. Um, and the second part, I guess, would be like the setting, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Is
Just outside of the Undertale discussion, have you ever tried the Mass Effect saga?
I know the saga, but I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't
So
played it. I know that it's a big RPG game, and also there is a lot of dialogues, and the dialogue itself is really important in the game. That's a fact that I
well,
know.
yeah, like in most of the RPGs, the dialogue, the it's important. No, but the setting is based on space, and instead of magic, you have kind of technology. So maybe that works better for you.
Yeah,
I
but
don't know.
it's a space. It reminds me of
So space doesn't work, and medieval ages doesn't work either. So it has to be what, like
zombie,
cowboys
zombie.
in
It
the
has to
Middle
be
East.
zombie.
Jesus fucking Christ, Eugene. Okay.
No,
Anyway,
but yes, for example,
uh,
Mass Effect. I would like to try the first one. I would like to play the
it's the one
first.
that I wouldn't recommend you. I would
Really?
tell you to try the second one.
Why? And why would you recommend the first one?
The first one is much more RPG oriented than the second one. The second one is kind of a shooter RPG game. The first one is very RPG.
Okay.
I liked it personally, but you can even see the aging of the system of the mechanics are, you know you're playing an old game, but when it comes to the second one, you know it's so much better. Yeah.
Okay. I will
Um.
follow your
Okay.
advice.
uh, or not, whatever. Uh, no, but anyway, what is an RPG, right? This is like the first thing that I wanted to point out. Well, what you said is very correct, right? That you have these kind of points, and you kind of create your own. Well, it can be either your own experience, or at least in many cases, it can be your own gameplay. The story itself for many RPGs is go from point A to point B. In between, well, there is a lot of bullshit that you can do, and that it gets you experience, and it gets you equipment. Maybe you can get new partners into the story, but in general, obviously, there are too many types of RPG out there. The story doesn't change from the fact that you choose to, for example, flee from a random encounter. That doesn't really change anything. It's a random encounter. If you want, you can kill him. If you don't want to kill him, well, you can flee. Or if you massacre an entire civilization because they looked you with a bad eye, and you're like, yeah, I don't like your face. I'm going to kill every last fucker of your race. You're a racist, or you're an asshole. It doesn't really matter in most of the RPG genre. Okay, in some of them they do. Um, so there was a person who was born in 1991, whose name was Toby Fox, that felt that this idea of killing everything basically in your path um, was kind of not an idea that he liked. So he kind of wanted there to be either a repercussion in the story, or at least how other characters treated you, like the dialogues that they had to you. They might be colder if you killed a lot of people. Like if you're bathed in blood and you're like, "Hey, how are you?" Maybe they look at you like, "Jesus Christ, what happened?" Instead of just, "Hey, what's up?" Um, so he kind of wanted that these interconnections between the characters to change based on the people that you killed or helped. And so this was the first idea of the game, which is not innovative, I must say. There are many games in which this happens, but it's the other idea that kind of well, the combination of these two ideas that kind of created the whole context of the game, which is that he wanted to befriend enemies. He wanted to be friends of the monsters in general, or at least be able to do it, and especially of the final bosses, which in many cases he felt like they were just part of a plot in which they had no real fault. Maybe they were lied to, or basically he wanted to be able to be friend of those people. And so this is kind of the two main ideas of the game that I'm going to talk to you about, which is called Undertale. So well, first I want to give you the definition of Undertale. What's Undertale? Well, Undertale is a video game. Obviously, this is not a channel about the news, right? This is a video game.
It can be.
Uh, it could be, I guess, but it's not. I think that's not the point of this channel. So it was created through a Kickstarter campaign. In 2015, it was like the first announcement. It was a bit of a teaser trailer about well, these mechanics and being able to be a friend of your enemies. The development went from 2012 to 2015. Originally, the goal, the set goal for the game was $5,000. In the end, the final amount of money that was received through Kickstarter before it was released was of $50,000. So more than 10 times what they asked for. The game itself was mainly developed by Toby Fox, the soundtrack as well, but the visual part of it, he had the help of a friend of his, who is called Temi Chang, and basically between those two people, and well, some of the designs of people from the Kickstarter campaign, they created the whole thing, right? The music, the gameplay, the artwork, the setting, everything, absolutely everything. So let's talk about Toby Fox. Who is Toby Fox? So Toby Fox is, as I said earlier, a guy, obviously, who was
A
born in New
male guy.
Hampshire, in a male guy. Yeah, and I don't want to talk too much more about that because I can get in trouble because I am uh, 32 already, and I don't know too much about sexuality and all this stuff. Anyway, 1991, New Hampshire, city of Manchester. He was born in a family. I don't know, a couple of brothers, I believe, two or three. And so, well, his first experience with video games um, was at the age of 4. At the age of 4, his first video game would change completely how he saw the world, and it gave him the first hobby that he would follow up to this date, which is video games. And the game was called Earthbound. Now, many of you might know the game if you are an RPG enthusiast. But some of you might not. So the Earthbound series is, well, I think it's, I'm saying series, but I think it's just one game. Um, it was launched in the 90s, and well, it's a game that visually and some of the mechanics might remind you of this Undertale, the game that Toby ended up creating. And so this game he started playing it when he was 4. Obviously the console wasn't his, was one of his brothers. But just so you understand, this is the first time he plays a video game. It's an RPG. There's a lot of dialogue, a lot of characters, a lot of different expressions, and so this was very intimate experience for him, not just because it was his first video game, but because it was it was a way for him to better learn the language. It's like reading your first book. Normally, well, for many people, your mother reads you the book, but in this case, for him, he was the one playing it. He didn't have the help of his brothers, and like in the case of Eugenio, whose brother played Resident Evil while he watched it, or the Zelda or whatever. In my case, it happened the same. By the way, in many instances, we had older brothers who play by themselves, and we watch and we like this voyeur kind of stuff. Toby Fox played by himself.
And let me
So
say, it was the first. I mean, I understand that our brothers were our first YouTubers, no, future YouTubers. I mean,
yeah, the format, right?
yes,
Indeed,
the
indeed.
thing to
Uh,
watch how somebody plays. I mean,
yeah.
we both started with that.
Yeah, and later on, in case of many families out there, when they see their children watching a streaming, and the father is like, "But if you like video games, why do you watch him play video games?" And he's like, "Well, because it's fun." So it's kind of like that. I didn't have a problem understanding that, because when I watched my brother play, I kind of liked it, and well, it was for quite a long time like that. Anyway, Toby Fox started playing the game. He started learning the language better, and when he got into high school, he was able to find an RPG forum called FunMaker. No, sorry, Fun Gamer, not FunMaker. What the? But in any case, he was his first contact with people outside of his family who liked the game. And so this was a first very important step for him. Now, in a few years later, he, with his brothers, started playing a bit with the RPG Maker 2000, and he started doing, well, a bit of video games, I guess. He never really published any of them, but it was a first try, a first glance at what these developing tools, easy developing tools, at least what it seemed, could do for a person that didn't really know too much about development. And so some years later, he created his first mod for Earthbound. I believe he created several, but the one that stood out the most and people still play to this day, that they think is very great, is the Halloween special. So yeah, he the gaming community of Earthbound really said it was a really cool mod. In high school, also there's one thing which is pretty important for the story of Toby Fox, which is that he learned to play the trumpet and the piano.
Mhm.
Okay, so the concept of the game, right? We have at the beginning it was kind of an introduction to what is the concept of the game, but now I'm going to get into a few more key points of it. The first one, as we have already said, killing for the sake of it, for the fun of it, might not be so fun for many people. And he wanted to be able to befriend the enemies. Now, if you have played Eugenio, if you have played any turn-based RPG system, well, at the beginning it might be slightly fun, I
What
guess.
what
Then,
what system did you
yeah,
say?
turn-based combat.
Are you going to explain it? I don't know if I can imagine it.
Oh, sure. Yeah, turn-based combat is basically instead of an action thing where you press a button and you immediately are attacking, you the game kind of stops and says, "Okay, what do you want to do? Action, attack. I'm going to use an item, or I'm going to go for defense." That's a turn-based combat.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so I'm guessing you have played some of them. I'm not completely
So
sure.
I understand it.
Uh,
It's like it's like Pokemon, for example.
yeah, for example, yeah, that's a turn-based combat. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm. Okay.
So
So
I thought it would be like you, but I understood that like you can choose between, for example, I mean, with these enemies, like you can fight them, but you can also speak to them if you want.
yeah,
So it's not
yeah,
like it's not like Pokemon that you have. It's always attacking. It's like you can choose.
yeah, there are other options. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but the idea itself is a turn-based combat. I mean, it's the game stops and tells you, okay, what do you want to do? And in some senses, well, you want to attack, and in others, you want to use an item. You want to flee the combat. You want to talk to the guy. In the case of this game, but it's true that in many video games, the option of talking is not really an option. It's like,
Yes.
okay, you have this guy in front of you. What do you want to do? I want to beat the crap out of him. Okay, you can do that. Let's go. But there
But
is not a
not
part where,
tell him nothing, anything,
yeah,
not a word.
normally there isn't a part where you are like, oh, what up, man? What's your name? Oh, my name is, I don't know, a basilisk. Oh, I see you have some beautiful eyes. Okay, no one ever told me that. Oh, maybe we can be friends. Okay, let's be friends. That's something that, I mean, obviously there are some games that you can do this, um, but it's not very often that it happens. And so turn-based combat in general, okay, some of them have a kind of a different mechanic that makes it a bit more fresh. But it's true that over time, if you play turn-based combat for a long time, or you just start playing a new turn-based combat, they all feel kind of similar. You have well, these kind of actions like attacking. If there is a monster or a person, whatever that you're combating with, um, and he's maybe what's it called? Um, he has a special effect if you do lightning, for example. If you throw lightning one or lightning two or lightning three to that person, to that monster, or whatever, it is. I don't even know the name, the word in Spanish, but anyway, it's more effective, right? Like in Pokemon, it's very effective, or it's not very effective, or it didn't do anything at all. That's it allows you to learn about this enemy, and if the first time you do a physical attack it does nothing, well, basically you start doing something else. But if not, it's just attack, 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 attack. Oh, it doesn't work like that for this enemy. Okay, I'm going to change a bit the tactic. But in general, it's true that turn-based combat might not be the most exciting of the RPG genres, or genres in general. Okay.
I think that this turn-based
Combat.
mechanics, I believe, is more. It gives the game more a reflexive way, more like. I believe it's easier to get beaten. So I mean, to get to lost against your enemy, because maybe you can think it more instead of just attacking in a normal, like, like the action or hack and slash games, or no, or isn't it the same?
Mm, like you're saying that
It's more
maybe in
difficult to
turn-based
die
combat
or to lose.
it's more difficult to die. It kind of depends on the game, but it's true that in general, games that are based on turn-based combat in which you die a lot are very frustrating because well, to be honest, most of the time it's not even about the tactic. It's that you don't have level enough for you to kill him. So you have to, okay, let's forget about the story. Let's forget about the princess. Let's forget about the nukes that are coming to Earth. I have to farm levels. So basically, you just go out for like 2 days and killing fucking slimes. And I got a whatever, a staff of power. Now I can finally go and beat the wolf that is in the middle of the way, and then you kill the wolf, and then you're like, oh, I'm so great. Now I'm going to beat every monster in the game. And like 5 minutes later, oh shit, they beat the crap out of me again. I have to stop and farm again. And this is unbelievable. So
Yes. Yes, I understand.
um
I mean, I metaphorically speaking, I understand that is like, okay, if you get into combats more often, so you get experience. So it's like you can beat enemies with higher levels. No, it's like metaphorically speaking. I mean, but yes, the usual thing is like, oh, I'm level 5, he's level or she's level 10, he's going to beat me out of it, but I just have to, get higher to that level, and then I will be able. So yes, it's like a simple way maybe, or I wouldn't say a simple way. It's
normally it
really
is a
common.
way to it's normally one of the main reasons why they, especially in the early years of RPG nowadays, well, JRPGs that are based on turn combat, or even JRPGs in general, are still very fond of this I have to farm mechanic. In the early days, this mechanic was created so that the game would be longer, so that instead of
Yes.
maybe a 20-hour game, just with 20 hour of content, you would spend 120 hours because you had to stop, you had to farm, you have to look for all the secrets for you to be prepared for that kind of combat. Now I understand that the leveling system kind of works in general, but it's true that when, for example, you are, let's say, seven levels below a monster or even a boss, um, I kind of feel that if it is a good turn-based RPG game, you should be able to uh, go across this obstacle or kill the monster or whatever by tactic. Like you have time enough for you to think, okay, he has maybe every 3 turns I have to hit him once because the kind of cast that he's doing it stops, and then I can kind of, without being so strong that it feels like, like you're beating the crap out of someone. It's kind of okay, I'm seven low levels behind him, but since I know the mechanics, I know the game, I know that through this tactic I can still beat them. The problem is when just being maybe five levels below the monster that you want to kill, your attacks are basically like nothing, and that's one of the problems of these RPGs come. Anyway, let's continue a bit. So, the as I said, befriending enemies, good. Now, influence about this, the Megami Tensei series, in which you could befriend the enemy, but he thought that first the enemies didn't have too much personality, so they felt kind of bland. If you talked with them with this or the other one, they kind of felt the same, so there was not too much variety to talk about them. um, the other thing is that if you gave the wrong response, the only way left was to kill them, which is kind of a bummer. I mean, if you have sympathized for this enemy, it's like, okay, so I didn't told you that I wanted to give you a Coca-Cola, it was a Fanta, so now I guess I have to kill you. Okay, that's weird. That's weird, and it's weird. So in the game there are apart from final bosses there are over 30 monsters, every one of them with a different kind of personality, and it makes it so that every time you encounter a new one, well, you have to kind of figure out what their deal is, if they want to be encouraged or if they want to just be left alone, or if you have to cheer them up, you have to tell them a joke, you have to help them with their homework, whatever it has, whatever you have to do. um, Now let's talk about the gameplay itself. So one thing is obviously what I just said, but one other point that is quite important in the game is that Toby, apart from these reasons that I said, that the turn-based combat can feel a bit stagnant over time and it, like not very engaging, he thought of a way to make it more engaging. How that was? Well, if you have been paying attention to the video that is being shown in Twitch, in case you can do it, well, I'm going to try to explain to you. Um, this is about the bullet hole. Sorry, bullet hole, bullet hell, not bullet hole, bullet hell genre. So in this genre, basically you pilot a ship through space, or maybe it's just a plane or whatever, but it's basically through the sky normally. And there's a lot of enemies that are throwing stuff at you. They're shooting at you. There is asteroids that maybe pop in the middle of the screen, and you have to quickly deal with them to be able to go across the asteroid. And well, at the end of the stage, either you just go to another stage or you kill the final boss or whatever. And it's a game genre that he personally liked a lot. I Well, that's okay with me. I haven't played too much of it. I think it's kind of boring after some time. But he wanted the core idea of having a more engaging combat through this system. So when you get into an encounter, be it the boss, be it a random encounter, and whatever you do, like if you unless you immediately run away, you for example, you do an action. Okay, I want to tell him a joke. You tell him the joke. Either the joke was very bad or was very good, or he didn't like it or whatever. The thing is that you go through this bullet hell immediately. This bullet hell, depending
How
on
how
the
how do you how do you say it? Ballet?
bullet hell,
Bullet hell. Like
infierno, balas infierno, bullet hell.
so, it's if I understand well, it's like this square thing, right?
No, I mean in the game that's how it's portrayed, but in the genre, it's like a
Okay.
big stage, right? And you have like the ship around here, and then you start pew, 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 pew,
Yes,
pew, pew, pew,
yes.
pew,
Okay,
and you
okay.
start, yeah. Um,
Bullet
right,
hell.
bullet hell. That's
Interesting concept.
yeah. And so you go through it no matter what, because he wanted a more engaging experience. He didn't just want it to be okay. Attack, 48 damage points. Okay, now what? Oh, he hits you for 25 damage points, and then it kind of goes back and forth, which is kind of what happens in these kind of games. So. In this game, in Undertale, you can avoid all the damage if you are skilled enough, or you have reflexes enough for you to dodge all the different stuff that pops in the middle of the screen. The harder the encounter is, the longer this bullet hell goes. So, for example, in these cases, if you're seeing if you're watching the in Twitch or in YouTube or whatever, you will see that these combats, these small mini combats, they last like 3 seconds, about that 3-4 seconds. Well, in the bosses, it can go on for 10, 15, 20, 30 seconds, depends. Um, and yeah, the style itself is not comparable. The difficulty is not comparable to the bullet hell genre, but it's kind of, it's sometimes it's a bit tougher, but you have items to regain life, and so you kind of learn through the patterns of this combat. And so he made a game that it was not as hard as bullet hell, but it was a fair experience for anyone that wanted to try it. So if you are a new gamer or a accomplished gamer, you kind of have fun with it. It doesn't really matter that much. It is true that some of the combats, especially in one of the, let's say, roots of the game, the final boss, kind of, it's quite tough, to be honest, quite very tough. But in general, I've played the game like 3 times already, and I had trouble with, let's say, 4, maybe 5 encounters in the whole game throughout like about 15 hours. So, well, I mean, it's hard, but it's fair. You kind of learn from it. I think it's kind of fun.
I
Okay,
have I have a
yeah.
question. Maybe it's a stupid one, but is it possible to talk with this final boss out of the idea of fighting and winning in that way? I mean,
Okay,
is it? Yeah.
I am going to try to not do any spoilers. You get into the combat state, let's say, and then depending on what you do, you might be able to kind of, I mean, not going to say talk them out of it, but kind of, yeah, get you out of that situation. And I don't want to be any more specific
Okay.
than that.
No, I asked because before you mentioned like you even can joke with the enemies, and
Yeah, you
in
can.
depending
Yeah.
on the answer of the enemy,
Mhm.
you have a reaction. I mean, you can.
Yeah, and maybe they don't like jokes, and they're like, "Oh, fuck off," and then they hit you.
Yeah, but it's
But some of them they do.
interesting that you can joke, you can say a joke to an enemy. It's
Yeah, yeah.
interesting way of doing it.
Mm. Okay. So very well. I'm not going to say very briefly because there is actually quite some stuff that there's a semester. I don't know how am I doing with the time, uh, more or less.
It's good, but I don't know if you have.
Okay. Okay. No, there's still quite some stuff that I have to explain. So there's one that I'm going to completely forget about,
Okay,
but there are things that I really need to talk about.
okay.
Well, the story. There's two worlds divided between the human world, the monster world. The character who is a boy, he's basically strolling around a mountain or something like that, and he falls down a hole, and he ends up in the monster realm. Now, the his way of experiencing this world, this new world, this monster world, it goes the same for him as for you because it's the first time that you see it. There is not too much information about it, what's happened there. So the character and yourself learn about the world as you go along and talk with different characters and learn, read different books. There isn't too much information, like you don't have to look too hard to find information. But yeah, you have to kind of look a bit for it. And so you would kind of create a vision of the world. It's still not in the first gameplay, you're not going to be able to understand the whole thing, but it is important that you look for the information a bit. The character doesn't have a voice. In some cases, some people don't really like that. But it depends on the game. In my case, and what I think the idea of Toby was, is that the character doesn't have a voice, and so you kind of create his personality through the lines that you have with different characters, the choices that you make. And so it's not a character that is very well defined through the gameplay, and you kind of get to know the character through the gameplay, but you kind of get to know yourself through the gameplay, through the decisions that you make. And well, I think that's a fair and interesting idea. The visual style, as you can see in the gameplay, is very simple. Most of the sprites of the characters and the monsters in the combat encounters are created with paint. Now, Toby Fox is not very good at painting, and he wanted to be able to create his character. So basically, what he did was, I'm going to use a simple tool to be able to do this. And also, it gave him the possibility to ask the some of the people that collaborated in the Kickstarter campaign to send him models of different characters that ended up being in the video game. Um, Also, why is this important? Because the comedic effect, sorry, comedic effect, so the comedy in the game is strong. And the one thing that he understood is that the more realistic you create a video game, graphically, visually, the harder it's going to be to create a comedy effect. So, for example, if you think about video games such as Final Fantasy VII, the remake is great. I'm not going to say otherwise, but it's true that the some of the comedy scenes from the first one, from this original game, were so much stronger than it's going to be in the remake. For example, the time where you visit a certain character and you have to dress up as a girl, and well, originally you had to go through a lot of items to be able for him to choose you. So normally he would choose the other two, but if you went through several side quests, you could get the best like the best, let's say, outfits. I'm not going to get into too much specifics, but if you got the best outfit, he would choose you instead of the other two, and so you would get into his room. And so once you are in his room, there are several things that you can do. The more you go on with the charada, the act of being a girl, the weirder and harder and hornier it gets. So at some point, you can even, kind of give him a kiss in the cheek. And so the character that so far is like, oh, I am a soldier, I am so tough, I am so strong, um, suddenly you are given a kiss in the cheek of a fat, weird guy. In the remake, he chooses you, whatever you do, and then you get into that scene. But it's true that there is no choice, right? You are Cloud, and you are strong, and you are tough, and you're going to beat the crap out of this guy. And in the original version, this thing can happen, right? So this graphics, this visual style, allows you to create these situations much more easily. Um, yeah, visually charismatic characters that you can empathize with, that area. Now, what makes it so special, the game? Well, obviously the concept, being able to befriend your enemies, the gameplay through the bullet hole, a more engaging gameplay, um, the what's it called, the risks that it took, right? 2015 is not precisely the year to show you
Totally.
this kind of game, right? It's visually unappealing, to be honest. You just see this small sprite moving around through a series of rooms, hitting people, whatever. Yeah, but it's not very appealing to the eye. And so the risk that it took is that he wanted to create something old school with a different approach, and he did it, and it worked.
Hmm.
Especially, it worked very well in the Japanese market, but it had to wait at least another 3 hours. Hours, years after release to be able to get to the Japanese market. You can play this game several times because there are different endings. And different ways to play the game, to be honest. So there is a big plus on that. The game itself, the first playthrough might be like a bit below 4 hours. The second one, maybe you know the game better, so maybe it takes you three, and then the next one maybe a bit more. But still, it's a short game for being an RPG. RPGs are known to be long games.
Hmm.
It's a very short one.
Yeah, but
Which,
correct me if
yeah,
I'm wrong. Maybe this, maybe Undertale focuses on also on the story, on the no, I don't. I haven't played the game, so I don't really know. But not the story, but the inter focuses more on the interactions from the character to the other characters. Maybe
yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
the
I mean,
reason why it gets shorter. Maybe because too much of that maybe it would be boring.
Uh, well, I think that he wanted to keep the story short for you to be able to play it several times. For example, one of the games that we talked about the other day, which I think even today I talked about, was Chrono Trigger.
Hmm.
Do you know
Hmm.
yeah? Okay, so that game, the reason why it's so good, well, one of the reasons, obviously there are many, but one of the things that made it stood out is that it was one of the first RPGs that, well, the game itself was like 16 hours more or less, but then you had Game Plus,
Hmm.
so there was the option to play it again. And the way the ending and many other things changed made you want to play again. So if you play an RPG that is turn-based combat, and you play it for 120 hours, you're not going to play it again immediately. You're going to be, okay, I'm going to take a break, maybe in 6 months, maybe in 2 years, maybe in 6 years or whatever, I'm going to play it again. But if you have a short game that gives you something a bit different, you're going to be wanting to try it again in a different way. You're going to try and give different answers. You're going to try and have a different route, a different path. And so this, I think, is one of the reasons behind it. They wanted for you to finish the game and be like, oh yeah, I want to play it again. Oh, finish it again. Oh, I want to play again, because it's short. If it's long, yeah, this is what happened with the Assassin's Creed saga, the Assassin's Creed Origins. Once you finally finish the game, you're like, yeah, I don't want to ever see you again. I've been playing this game for 300 hours. I'm done with it. I'm done with it. But if you play for 4 hours and then another four, you still are like, okay, maybe there's still stuff that I haven't seen. Obviously, in the long run, maybe you prefer 300 hours over uh, uh, for I don't know, 16 hours split in three. But the truth is that in the end, you have a much better taste for the game. And even if you were to play it again randomly, it's like, oh yeah, why not? I'm going to play it because in 3 hours I'm going to finish it.
I would
Okay.
say, I mean, I didn't want to interrupt you, but since you have
Yeah.
stopped there, I would say that I prefer games of 2 hours, so 2 hours long
Hmm.
games, than
Hmm.
300 hours,
Yeah. Yeah.
honestly.
I mean, it depends on the game, but it's true that many times we prefer shorter games that we can play it several times instead of one game that is so freaking long that you just don't want to know anything more about it. Because after you finish Undertale, you're like, oh my god, I have so many things to say about this game. I have to tell people about how good it is in so many ways. If you finish after 350 hours a game, you're like, okay, yeah, it's good, but it's too long. I mean, I'm exhausted just by thinking about it. Okay, and so and also the story, the plot, is going to be much better because it doesn't have time to fuck up, to screw up the point, right? If you go through a story of 300 hours, there's going to be bad things about it for sure because it's almost impossible, especially through shorter periods of developing, because the more the years go, companies don't want to wait 5 years for its game to be out. They want 1 2 years, and then let's go. And so the story, the plot normally tends to be worse, right? There's always some idea, some side quest that you're like, again, I'm picking tomatoes for the fucking ill lady. Again, tomatoes, really? I mean, don't I have better things to do? No, that you have to go and oh please, my chickens have gone abroad. I really need someone for help. Jesus Christ, again the chickens. Come on, lady. So yeah. Anyway, things that are great about the game. The soundtrack. Soundtrack is spot on. It touches several music genres such as dubstep. It goes to musical classical music. It goes through rock. It goes through metal. It goes through folk.
Wow.
Um, it goes through several genres in the music area, and I think it's great. And he does an absolute banger job about them. Uh, there are several covers about it in metal, in classic, in lofi. There are so many, and so most of them are absolutely great because the original material is absolutely gorgeous. Now, I'm
And
not going to
have
go through.
did
Yeah,
did, did he create all of the music,
I think he did. Yes.
but in different genres? Really? I mean, he
Yeah.
did knew how to do classical music, dubstep music. Wow.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is one of the things that really stood out because if you like music in general, there's going to be a space for in your heart for this game because it's absolutely crazy. And if you are like, yeah, maybe I just like metal, there's at least three pieces that you're going to like. If you like dubstep, well, there is one. You like a jazz kind of blues kind of thing. There are at least two or three that go that way. So yeah, if you like music in general, but if you like any kind of music and you are an enthusiast about it, there's going to be at least one music track that is going to be amazing for you.
Wow.
Now, just as a very brief comment, 2015, the year that it was released on Steam, the game landed on the spot 12 on copies sold. Okay, this is the year of GTA 5, which was obviously in the first spot, The Witcher 3 for Steam, and many others. And this game sold over, what was it again? Let me check because I don't want to screw this thing up. He it sold over almost 800,000 copies and earned a bit below $4 million. Okay, I'm just going to stop there because I can comment on this for quite some time, but I don't have that time. So, um, as a last part of this presentation, I want to talk about a few
Trivia. Trivia.
trivia, whatever. Yeah, trivia. The first one, there is a hard mode that you can unlock. Let's say, if you put a different number, sorry, different name for the main character, but it only lasts for about 15-20 minutes until you get to the first boss, let's say. And at that moment, the basically Toby, through the characters, tells you that there's probably not going to be a longer version for this hard game, that he kind of wanted to do it, but then he felt like it wasn't unnecessary, and so basically it's never going to happen. And since 7 years have passed since then and he's working on other projects, this is something that is definitely not going to happen. But still, at the beginning, you can the random encounters are with much harder enemies, which is, well, kind of fun
And
in any case.
what specific name you have to put?
I'm not going. I don't. I don't
It's
have the balls to say that.
but it's also a part of the.
Yeah, it's a part of the story. Yes.
Okay, okay.
Okay,
And
so you can.
do you realize about this? I mean, do you know that when this name is told, you know that this name you can use it in order to have a hard mode?
No, the game doesn't tell you so. But if you once you know the name, and you can, it's a very, you know story
Specific.
wise, it's an important name. Maybe you try to start a new game, and then you are like, okay, what happens if I, and suddenly you go into this
Oh, okay.
mode. Yeah, it was very bad, because the first time that I tried it, because I felt like the game wasn't too hard for me, so I tried on the I believe I'm not sure if it was the first try or the second try, but I thought that I was doing something wrong, and so I tried to unlock this mode for like 3 times, and then I checked on the internet. It's like, yeah, it doesn't work. Okay, never mind. But yeah, I wasted like 2.5 hours of my life about this. Anyway, well, lots of fun. Yeah, there is a character in the game which is probably the first real friend, let's say, that you have in the game, which is a mother figure who is called Toriel. Now, if the pronunciation was good enough, you might have thought, oh, Toriel tutorial. Yes, that's right. The name of the character was made for this reason, to first um, make a comment about how mothers in RPGs uh, are so left out of the story. To be honest, it's like, for example, in Pokemon, it's like, yeah, you are 11 now, and you can go fuck yourself. Go get me some monsters and leave me alone. And I'm going to clean your room. And you're like, why do you clean my room? I'm not going to be here. Just go away, please. Okay. Uh, so, and basically, if you ever come back, there is no much. I mean, you can come back, and maybe he has some items for you, but when it comes to the story, it doesn't really matter, right? Um, so he wanted to kind of make that point that these feminine figures, these mother figures, to have a bit more of an impact in the story. The other point, I don't really care. It's about tutorials not being enough in RPGs, and I still think that there are too many. So in that sense, I don't really, I don't agree with him.
Yeah, and also because
Uh,
it's a huge topic. I mean, tutorials
yeah,
in video games is.
yeah, yeah. Okay, and last thing, and with this, I'm done. I'm utterly done with it, and I don't want to talk about Undertale any more. Okay, because after talking about it in 2 languages, I'm not going to talk about it in German or Italian or Japanese or whatever. Fuck
French,
off! I don't want
French.
to talk about this anymore. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is that the Japanese translation was very interesting. It was translated into Japanese in 2018. If I
I must
am
say this curiosity I find it really really interesting.
Oh yeah, you do. Okay, that's great. Okay. I never expected it to be that. I mean, I know you are a translator, such as myself, but I didn't expect you to like it so much, because you're not too much into Japanese. But I mean, if you think it's interesting, that's absolutely great. I personally, I like it too much.
Yeah, but and I say because it explains why maybe Japanese language is so different from other cultures, from other
Yeah.
not Asian cultures, of course.
Mhm. Okay, so the thing is, in 2018, it was translated to Japanese, and well, there it was kind of a hit as well. It sold, I believe, the first year, knowing what the Japanese market is, it sold above 200,000 copies in Japan, knowing that the year in 2015, across the rest of the world, in just in the English language, it sold 800,000. So, well, 25% that year only in Japanese sold
Wow.
sales. Yeah. So
Good for Toby.
um, definitely, and they love Toby and the Undertale. They love it there. They created for the 5 year anniversary. They hired well, they created together with Toby a demonstration, a show, let's say. Uh, with a symphonic orchestra from Japan, and they created they created a live concert with all the pieces of the soundtrack, which is, by the way, very good. Not just the soundtrack, but I mean this
Like this version, right?
yeah, this version, yeah.
That
But anyway,
orchestral version.
yeah, orchestral version. Anyway, one of the things that really stood out was the translation, the localization of the translation. And one thing that really stood out for me and for them as well, and I think it's really interesting, is that the pronoun used for one of the characters, specifically Sans, which is the well, one of the main characters, and the first one that comes to mind when you think of Undertale is as like a kind of like a small skeleton with a round head, like a grin on his face. It's kind of nice. Um, the thing is, the pronoun that they use for him is a bit different from the usual pronouns used in Japanese. So, in case you don't know, the pronouns in Japanese are quite important. They give you, like many other words, but specifically pronouns, they give you a taste of the formality that two people have between one another, or even the image that they have of themselves. So, for example, the pronouns are so important that if you say the pronoun you in Japanese in the least formal way possible, the translation to English is well, it can be sucker, or it can be son of a bitch, or it can be many other insults. And so, as you can see, he's just saying you, but really informal, like the lowest way to say it. So yeah, it's like a respectful thing.
I mean,
Um,
I don't want to compare it because I don't know if I'm going to say something really ugly, but I understand that it's like I would say it's not like less informal. I would say like it's really informal, right? I mean, it's like a way of saying it, like maybe vulgar because if you are using insults,
yeah, it's the it's like the lowest bar of respect towards a person, right? It's like saying you, but you are on the level like below animals,
yeah,
like
it's
other
like
animals. So it's kind of this idea.
yeah, it's like
Yeah,
yo, no,
but worse
but
because
worse even.
in some senses, yeah. I mean, if you say "oh motherfucker" to someone you don't know in the street, he can get pissed. He can tell you, "Go fuck yourself." But in the case of Japan, it's like
It's like respect.
you are not considering him kind of as a human. You're really going there. You're going to
Wow,
the least respectful way to talk to a person. Okay,
and
so
that
that's kind
is
of the thing. Uh,
no, no I mean,
should I say it? Should I
ah,
say it? I'm not
yeah, yeah.
sure.
Well,
I know, but
it's in
I mean, you can.
Japanese. I mean,
Yeah, it's in Japanese, and you can really hear it in many animes. Okay, this in anime world it happens. It just happens, which is kisama.
Kisama.
Kisama is I don't know if it's the lowest of them all, but it's definitely one that every time I spoke with my Japanese teacher, is like, yeah, that you don't want to say that. Okay, fair enough.
And it's
Uh,
is the character that you said I mentioned like this the school guy is the pronoun that he used for the rest of the body of for everybody or that he used to himself?
okay, wait. The pronoun like
Yes.
okay, the pronoun that I said was the example of the you of being son of a bitch, but it's not the pronoun that he uses.
Ah, okay. But
Okay.
what I mean is he uses it or people uses
He uses it for himself.
ah okay.
Okay, because the pronoun that he uses is not you, it's I.
Ah,
Okay.
okay.
Sorry if that was confusing, and sorry everyone. No, this was the example that I was trying to exemplify that son of a bitch could be you in a least formal way. No, the pronoun that he uses is I, but in a very specific way, which is a pronoun I that is used mainly in rural areas. So people from the either the very outskirts of the city or people from the actual fields, people that are brewing, farming,
Hmm.
basically farmers. Um, and so these people that are outside mainly of these big cities or even small cities is one of the pronouns that maybe they feel comfortable using, which is oira. Oira is a well, it's a pronoun that I've in at least in the anime world I've heard it mainly for children who are from the fields, from a rural area, not people from the city. Obviously, in the reality, maybe other apart from children from the rural areas, so other people use it. But I guess it's not very common. Anyway, the thing is that people from that fact they started creating pictures, fan pics of sons wearing like a straw hat and then farming in the fields and all that with his cows and all the different animals typical from the fields. And many other fan pics have appeared from with him and obviously making out with many different characters of the game, and well, how the fanpics world is. But you can try them. You can find them in DeviantArt and in many other areas. Anyway, great soundtrack. I really recommend it to you. Fresh gameplay, very cool story, charismatic characters, and an experience that I highly, highly, highly recommend you, especially given that the well, the price is very good.